Good. Thank you, Mr. Marler. Mr. Casella, I forgot to ask you during the break, but item number 16, I know we're going to move up. Should that be put under item number 4 or up under or above item number 2? Either way?
Probably I would, well, we're going to do the restructuring of the loan as the ordinance. Do you want that interlocal agreement done before? I think that should be,
So
16 should be number 1A.
1A? Okay.
No, that's the minutes. Number 1 is the minutes.
Well, I understand, but after the minutes.
So after the minutes, so not a public hearing then? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move item 16.
Could I interject, Mayor?
Yes, sir, Mr. Miller.
It will have to be after the public opportunity to speak on council propositions.
So it'll be item number 2A, but not a public hearing?
That's fine.
Okay. So we're moving pulling 16 and making it 2A, but not a public hearing. It'll come right after the public hearing of the second reading of ordinance 15-05. Council, is that okay with y'all? Okay, good. Nope.
I think it needs to be before the public hearing.
Mayor, you can put it earlier, but just please invite the public to speak regarding the item.
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough. We're going to make that.
Comply with that statute.
Yes, sir. We're glad to do it. We're going to make it item 1A and make that a public timed response as well. Okay. Item number 1, approval of minutes. Request approval of minutes for the May 18, 2015 Destin City Council meeting.
Move
Council?
to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Trammell's got the first. Mr. Wood has a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, 1A, we have readoption of the amended and restated interlocal agreement between the City of Destin and the Town Center CRA Revenue Note Restructuring. Mr. Casella?
This item is basically to restate the interlocal agreement between the city and the town center. It was subsequently approved by the CRA board at its earlier meeting, so we'd ask for your consideration of that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Casella. Because this will be a chance for the public to respond, would anyone like to speak for or against item 1A? Seeing none, we will close the public portion of the meeting, turn it over to City Council for discussion or motion. Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the recommended motion. I move that the amended and restated interlocal agreement between the City of Destin and the Town Center CRA approved on May 18th, 2015 be rescinded and the attached updated, amended, and restated interlocal agreement between the City of Destin and the Town Center CRA be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there, Ms. Trammell?
Second.
Ms. Trammell has a second. Is there any discussion?
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Trammell?
Just during the CRA meeting, it was noted that the city clerk does have a copy of the amended and restated.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Trammell, for making that noted. Okay, seeing no other discussion, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, under public hearings, item number 2 will be second reading of ordinance 15-05-CN Town Center CRA Loan Restructuring. Mr. Miller, will you please read by title?
Mayor, for the record, I do not represent the city as local counsel in municipal finance issues, and
okay.
so the city clerk will read that title.
Mr. Clerk, okay, great. Mr. Bailey, please read that by title.
Okay, ordinance 15-05-CN is an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending in certain respects and restating in its entirety ordinance number 14-04-CN enacted on March 3rd, 2014, entitled, quote, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, authorizing the issuance of a not exceeding $12 million Town Center Redevelopment Refunding Revenue Note Series 2014 for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding obligations of the Community Development Agency of the City of Destin, Florida, pledging the pledged funds to secure payment of the principals of and interest on the note, making certain other covenants and agreements in connection therewith, providing for the rights of the holders of such note, providing for repeal of certain ordinances and resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date, unquote, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. being that this is a public hearing, would any member of the public wish to speak for or against ordinance 15-05-CN on second reading? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion and turn it over to City Council for direction or discussion. Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that ordinance 15-05-CN be approved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first by Mr. Wood, a second by Mr. Trammell. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous. 7-0. Outstanding. Okay, at this moment, we would, if there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on agenda items 3 through 17, or pardon me, 3 through 17, would you please come forward, get Mr. Bailey and speak at this time? Otherwise, you will get a chance to speak at the end of tonight's meeting. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, consent agenda, council discussion direction.
I'll make the motion, so.
Mr. Marlar has the first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Trammell. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Item number 4, resolution 15-08, Town Center CRA loan restructuring. Mr. Miller, would that be Mr. Bailey again? Yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Bailey, please read that by title.
Resolution number 15-08 is a resolution of the City of Destin, Florida, amending in certain respects and restating in its entirety Resolution number 14-04, adopted March 3, 2014, entitled, quote, "A resolution of the City of Destin, Florida, supplementing ordinance number 14-04-CN, authorizing the issuance of a not exceeding $12 million Town Center Area Redevelopment Refunding Revenue Note, Series 2014, for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding obligations of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the city, providing for the rights of the holders of such note, providing for the payment thereof, awarding the such note, making certain other covenants and agreements in connection therewith, providing for the maturity, interest rate, prepayment provisions, and other details with respect to such note, authorizing other actions in connection with the delivery of such note, approving form of interlocal agreement, providing for repeal of certain ordinances and resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date, unquote, and providing an effective date."
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. I'll turn it over to council for direction and discussion. Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution 15-08 be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Trammell has a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Congratulations. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, no committee reports, no scheduled presentation from the public. Next up, project reports and comments from the mayor and council. First up, Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. First question I had was, why did we not use our street sweeper more than 2 or 3 days a week? Anybody? Bueller?
Yep. Mr. Campbell?
Right now, we're still trying to catch up after all the work we did on the annex and the museum. And once we get caught up, we'll be able to get on a more regular schedule.
Okay, thanks. I had a question about the air conditioning system at the community center, but I got that answer at the weekly report a while ago. The invoices that was paid on the Indian Bayou stormwater jobs that was completed, can I get a copy of those, please?
You sure can.
And the one that GCUC did at Calhoun Park, repairing the seawall?
Yes.
Can I get that?
We have those.
When can I expect those?
We can pull those out for you tomorrow.
And just stick them in my box, please?
Will do.
Thank you so much. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. And next up, Ms. Ramswell.
Wait a
Wait,
minute.
Mr. Casella. Wait.
We'll make sure all of you have those invoices, so.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Casella. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you, Mayor. The first thing I wanted to talk about tonight was the local coastal management plan. It came to my attention that apparently there is an MOU in place, but it hasn't really been formalized. And one of the concerns is the actual coordination and cooperation and what actually is in place for the city, the island, the county, the different agencies in our area to actually work together in the event of a natural disaster such as a hurricane or a tropical storm. And one of the concerns was identifying the sources of funding for the maintenance and renourishment activities, as well as who is going to be maintaining them and managing this particular issue. And I know that there's actually, like I said, there was an MOU, I guess, with the DEP at one point and the county at another. And I had mentioned with city manager earlier today, sort of to get his thoughts and gauge where we were with that process. City manager, can you sort of shed some light on the history and what is in place right now?
Yeah, we do have in place, I think it's still in place, it was when I left before, we have an interlocal agreement between the city and I believe it's Okaloosa County, or it may be between Okaloosa County Tourist Development Council at the time, where they take the lead on beach-related issues. As it relates to hurricanes and stuff, we do have, because of Ivan and Dennis and other storms, and any storm that really impacts our coast, we have pretty well-defined procedures to deal with. We do pre-evaluations before the storms come in to make sure we understand the profiles of the beach. And then after the storm, we do a profile so we know exactly how much sand has been displaced, and then we can work with FEMA for reimbursement. So there's at least bits and parts of I think what you're talking about. I don't know precisely what a local coastal management plan is, but we do have the interlocal agreement with the TDC, as well as, you know, past practices rely on. But I've reached out this afternoon to Jim Trapilio with the TDC to get some clarity from him, but he was not in the office when I placed that call.
Okay. You know, I just think it's important and to try to make sure that there is some sort of plan of operation. You know, these are the funds that are earmarked for this purpose, you know, in the event that dunes are washed out or whatever might befall us. So just sort of identifying the funding sources, where perhaps the maintenance or the operation of that is going to come from, who needs to coordinate with who, just sort of an emergency plan that we have in place that is, you know, something that we can follow along. The sources are there, it's easily accessible, identifiable. Just, you know, I think it's important, especially as we enter hurricane season, and knock on wood, you know, things have been good so far, but just to have that set in place. The other thing I just wanted to mention was we had talked about, I believe, several months ago, before the November election, the potential for marijuana legalization. And I know there was just a passing for medical marijuana that went into, or is going into effect, and they're starting to work with the growers and identify different sources of disbursement. I'd like to see us maybe dust off what we talked about a little bit, because one of the concerns is they are using doctors' offices, rehab facilities, things of that nature within different zoning as the dispersers. And as we know, that actually falls into the Crystal Beach mixed use and several different areas that are also residential. So if we could just dust that off and maybe take a look at where we will allow this sort of sales. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms.
Thanks.
Ramswell. Ms. Trammell, is there a comment about what Ms. Ramswell said?
I think what Mrs. Ramswell is looking for has already been done, and you can contact Jim Trapilio if Mr. Casella is going to do it, because with our numerous storm events we've had here, it's all come out, and everybody's been there to do what they need to do. The problem always comes in is the sand was washed out yesterday, why isn't it put back today? Well, government just doesn't work that fast, unfortunately. But as far as I'm concerned, I know, and Steve Schmidt may be able to, because you're on the or at the time, weren't you on the emergency planning something or other at that time, and brought that before us several years ago. So it is here.
Right, I think the problem is that there is an MOU, but there's no set identification of the contact person is this. the funds will come from this. I think it's more of, we're all gonna work together and we'll see that it's done, rather than an exact structure and an exact set plan.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Next up, Mr. Dixon.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Foreman?
Thank you, Mayor. What I'd like to bring up is something that I was going to bring up at the visioning session we had some weeks ago. It had to do, but the agenda for that was so packed that I didn't bring it up. And it has to do with our city charter. Our city charter was put into effect in November of 1995, which is some time ago. And in the course of all the events that have taken place, the growth of the city, the different planning zones and things that we've come up with, and the responsibilities, I think it's time that we have another review of the charter and take a look at the various provisions in that. And the way to do that is for this to be agended for a full discussion at some point in the near future, where we would have available to us the material that we would need for that discussion. And things that come to mind is in order to do a change to the charter, should that take place, you need to go through a review process. Usually that's done by a separate committee that brings it to the council, and then it goes forward to a referendum. And so that's what I have in mind at this point. And so my comment is that we should ask the city manager to take a look at a point in time here in the very near future, come back, and we will discuss that process, and at that point make a decision.
That good, Mr. Casella? Good. You don't need a motion or anything? It's just, okay, good deal. All right, that all, Mr. Foreman? Okay, thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Marlar?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question for David. Okay, we are complete now with Kelly Street as far as...
We are complete.
Okay, so we have a ribbon cutting or something else coming up soon, or?
That we'll have to discuss with Doug.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to know, just make sure that they're completely done. That's all I wanted to find out.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
they're done.
It's good. I like it.
Thank you.
All right.
Does that mean we can drive down it now, Carter?
Yeah, you can drive down on my street now. Just don't speed, because I will catch you.
Thank you, Mr. Marlar. Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mayor. Would you boot up my little 5-slide presentation, please? Okay, seeing as how I have less than a year left on the council here, I want to start giving some briefings on things that I'm involved in, so we have some continuity of operations when I go away. I've been involved in the 5 to 10 year review of the Florida State Transportation Plan for the last month or so with FDOT in various locations around the state. Some of you may have been involved in the 12 February workshop we had at the Emerald Coast Conference Center. There'll be some more workshops in June. Unfortunately, the closest one was in Lake City. I've already voiced my disapproval of not having one closer. The one after that will be in August in Panama City. We have steering committee meetings all over the state between May and October. I've been to 2 or 3 of those already, and some subcommittees on different subjects relating to the overall plan, and I've been involved in a couple of those already. By the end of the year, we'll have a new Florida plan, which the FTP is a Florida Transportation Plan, and the SIS part is the Strategic Intermodal System. I'll get to that in a minute. All meetings are sunshine compliant and all are open to the public, and the website you see there is the site that FDOT created to download all the stuff we're doing, all the presentations, all the notes, all the minutes, everything's there. So if you want to see what's going on, you can go to that site and read to your heart's content, but there's a lot of data there. Next, please. You can't really read this, but there's 36 organizations involved in the steering committee. There's only 2 elected officials, myself and the mayor of Boca Raton. Otherwise, they're all agency, organizational folks from around Florida. Lots of folks come to the table, lots of information, lots of perspectives on different things that affect transportation across the board. Next. We have 4 advisory groups that are breaking down many of the areas that were identified in the first 12 February workshop. The one that I'm serving on is the Strategic Intermodal System, and some of you may never have heard of that. I want you to flip to the next slide for me. SAS is important because most of the money we spend on transportation in this state, 75% go to the Strategic Intermodal System. That's a lot of money. That's our seaports, our major highways, our major airports, military bases, big economic drivers around the state are all in this system. So whether they're those kind of hubs, whether they are highways that connect them, or other connectors in between, those are where that big money goes. Some of the things are called, some of these items are on the actual strategic intermodal system, and some are what they call emerging. So you got CIS and emerging CIS. All that is different levels of bigness, CIS being the great big ones, and emerging CIS being ones that are a little smaller, but may get to the CIS list later on. But it's important because so much of our funding goes there that, you know, whether we want to keep doing that into the future or whether we want to change that system a little bit and have some of that money go to things that aren't on that list. Last slide. Now, why should anybody care about some of this stuff? You know, there is a number. Visit Florida right now says that this year they're expecting 100 million visitors. In 9 years, they're expecting 150 million visitors. So in our local area, what's the impact going to be? How are we going to move our part of those new 50 million folks? That's a lot of people. And we don't move the ones we have here now very well. According to my own local TPO long-range plan, both Okaloosa and Walton County are going to grow by 250% by 2035. That's our resident locals. Again, how do you move those folks? Efficient and safe hurricane evacuation. You know, we've been lucky for about 10 years now, but who knows what happens in the future? Cost of roadways versus transit. Some of you may have been in some discussions. I've been in these discussions for the last couple years, and sometimes when you rebuild a highway, it's going to be at least $1 million a mile. So how long can you build roadways versus doing something else, whether it's transit or some other issues? How about the impact of autonomous and connected cars? As I've been told in some of the committees I serve on, these things are a tsunami and they're coming. And whether they're the cars currently out there that help you back up with a little camera in the car, or whether it's a complete Google vehicle that drives itself, these things are coming. So do you have them on the roadway, dedicated lanes by themselves, or are they on the road next to you when you're driving your car? And what's that relationship going to be? Trip and tap are two ways we can fund some roadways locally and regionally. Should we have more money there, kind of going back to the 75% for CIS, should we take some of that big money and put it in smaller things that might help more communities like Destin? We've always gotten some money from these trip and tap programs, so putting money that goes to local communities might help us more. Again, the next bullet there's the 75% again. Continued emphasis on multimodal and safety. How is that going to affect Highway 98? We got a resurfacing of 98 in 2018 through Destin. We're talking about crosswalks and overpasses and all kinds of things. What is that going to lead to? Coordination between economic needs, moving goods and services by truck with what we want in our local communities, more of a quality of life. Who wants 18-wheel trucks going through your neighborhood? You still got to move goods. I know I don't want them through mine, but somewhere vehicles got to move. New construction versus maintaining current stuff. That's always an issue of, do you build new things or spend your money maintaining what you currently have? And then lastly, we've been involved in some of the committees I've been on for the last 3 or 4 years looking at the issue of how you fund transportation. Gas tax is not the way to do it. That's usually how you fund transportation. Gas tax, because of improved CAFE standards and just less use, that budget is going down. We spent $10.3 billion this year in the state of Florida on SIS/transportation. That's a lot of money. The way gas tax is going, that's only going to be going down. So what do you do in place of that to make sure that those things we want get funded without just raising taxes? So there's lots of things out there on why what goes on from the kind of 40,000 foot level of transportation is important. I've tried to be involved in this for a number of years, and hopefully when I leave next year, somebody will take up the mantle and drive on with it. So as I go through some of the forums that I'm involved in, I'll try to come back and report out so folks know what's going on. So I appreciate that, and hopefully maybe you learned a little something tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Yes, please continue to keep us informed. Your wisdom would be greatly appreciated. Awesome, thank you. Ms. Trammell?
I'd like to start first with a question for Mr. Wood. I know many years ago when I was on CIS, if you accepted and built something with CIS funds, the minimum speed had to be 50 or 55. So we thought we could get money to reinforce Noriega Point out of the CIS funds, but we had to have Highway 98 at 55 miles an hour going through Destin. So there's give and take. Is that still true, or have they changed that?
No, that is exactly true. You know, one of the things of accepting somebody else's money is you get their long list of strings that come along with it. And especially when you take federal money, that list gets really long. And one of the things about CIS is those are the high-speed corridors. And parts of 98 are on the CIS. Other parts, like through Destin, are not. And frankly, you could not put them on the CIS because we could not do what CIS requires through Destin. I'd have to bulldoze parking lots and buildings to make 98 CIS compliant through Destin. We're just not going to do that. And FDOT knows that. So can you take CIS money and use it on non-CIS roadways if it helps connect to CIS portions? That's something that's on the table right now. So that would help us out here in Destin also. So thank you.
Good question.
So it's not as easily as it sounds.
Not hardly.
Anyway, I just have two little items tonight, and first item is I want to say congrats to the Main Street Car Show that happened this past weekend. I assume and have heard that it was very successful, so I'm grateful for that. And the other thing I have is I'd like to thank the staff and the council for the beautification of Main Street. We got the flowers in. So, and we're working on the trees, I guess. So anyway, it looks great, and it will look better as the flowers bloom and grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I had a couple things. First, I know we will get an update from Mr. Sandstead here shortly on the car show, and so I've heard great things as well from people as well as the Sheriff's Department. So those are always good, two good ones to listen to. I did get a text from most of y'all know on council, Captain Mike Parker and as well as Captain Gary Jarvis. We were all invited tonight to the Get to Know You Captains down at Royal Melvin Park, and they said that they'll probably be eating till about 8, and if our meeting got done, to come down, and he said on the menus fried snapper, barbecue, mac and cheese, etc. So we're all invited, and Greg, he included you too. So
Without Lucy?
oh no, with Lucy. So. Yeah, I know. I'm working on that. I've got one item under my name that I had gotten reports of from various sources about some website, and I got a hold of Greg immediately. And I'm not saying they have a ton of people that follow it, but I do not like the rumblings that this would even have any kind of ripple effects, and that's regarding spring break. As we all know, what Panama City stepped out boldly and did in the aftermath of their current spring break, as they put some standards in place so that next year's spring break maybe won't be as entertaining as this past spring break was to those who chose to go there thinking it was some sort of euphoric state of continuous partying. And I've been very, very thankful and pleased with the way our Sheriff's Department has handled our spring breakers, plus coupled with the crowd that did come here prior to this year, I believe was within the scope of the DNA of our city, as well as what I believe we allow them to do. They kind of grafted in well to who we are. Of course, there's always some ones that get a little more wilder than others, and but I've been pleased. However, this website, you know, I don't know how many followers they have, but they were using some language I don't agree with, so I won't read it. But basically, they were highlighting to any fraternity member that would read their periodical that here's the top 5 places in the world to go on spring break in 2016. Number 1 was Cancun. Number 2 was Destin, Florida. I may be isolated, but not on my watch. It's just not going to happen. And so I got a hold of Mr. Casella immediately. Granted, part of the article mentioned Whale's Tail, which clearly is not in Destin, so geographically they're challenged. However, I do appreciate what Sheriff Atkinson did. He, in response to that, he kind of slapped it right back at him and said, basically, for Walton County's sake, although you list Destin, we're zero tolerance. And so, and I'm sure Sheriff Ashley, Captain Pecos, same thing for us. And I don't know if we can respond as well, but if it lays it on your heart, obviously I'd love to slap it back with that too. But I believe its time is now. I don't want us to be a reactionary state, a reactionary city to what could be clearly on the horizon. They're rumbling and putting stuff out there now that Destin's in their crosshairs for 2016. I don't believe that remotely matches who we are as a community. It doesn't match our vision, our heritage, our people, our history, our family atmosphere. So I would like, with council's consensus just for tonight, to let Greg work with, I know Webb has got very intimate with some of the stuff going on in Panama City. I would like, with y'all's direction and consensus, to let Greg to come back to us with some strategic plan that we can raise the standard in the city of Destin, whether it's alcohol hours, serving hours, whatever the case may be. If that's okay, Mr. Casella, if the council's good with that, can we direct you to bring us back something?
Yeah, that would be appropriate. I've also been advised by the Vice Chairman Wines with the Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners is going to ask the BCC tomorrow night to do something very similar. So I think if we synchronize our efforts with the counties, especially from an enforcement standpoint, that will help. But we would be glad to, if Mr. Wines is successful in getting the BCC to support that initiative, then we can bring some options back to you for your consideration, and then hopefully be in sync with what the county's doing, so that will make it a lot easier from an enforcement standpoint for the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Casella. Ms. Trammell had a comment. Ms. Trammell?
I'd just like to make a motion that the city manager work with the BCC and the law enforcement officers throughout the county to come up with a plan and bring it back to us for consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Mr. Wood is a second. Is there any discussion on the direction we're giving Mr. Casella? Okay, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous. Thank you very much, City Council and Mr. Casella, for working with Mr. Wines on that. Okay, that is it for me. Next up, staff reports and recommendations. First up, Mr. Miller.
I have no items.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Shirley's not here?
No,
Okay.
he's,
No problem. Approval of expenditure for the annual transportation concurrency analysis. Mr. Casella?
yeah, this is the annual concurrency that we do with the Renaissance Planning Group. We would ask for your authorization of this item. The money has been budgeted in the Community Development Department's budget, and it's to the tune of $44,528. And I think we do it in the peak season in the month of July, so that we can make sure that we have the peak numbers. I know that was a criticism in the past, so, but this is being done in July, which is a peak time for us.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Casella. I agree. I was glad to see that it is those dates they chose, so it's more realistic of what we have. Okay, City Council discussion direction. Mr. Wood?
I'll go ahead and make the, wait a minute, where's the, let me get to it here. Where's that? Here we go. Get it turned on here. All right, I move the City Council approve the scope of services for the annual transportation concurrency analysis and biannual multimodal transportation district monitoring report by Renaissance Planning Group with a budget of not more than $44,528.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Marler has a second?
And I have a question too.
Yes, Mr. Wood, please.
I noticed when I was reading through this that we're collecting the data, even though it is summertime data, we're collecting what, either Monday to Thursday or Tuesday to Thursday? We don't collect any weekend data?
Similarly to the seasonality of it, we wanted to be more consistent with the midweek, and in actuality, during the season, that's a higher time that we see some of the activity.
Roger,
Because our
okay.
visitors are here during the week.
Gotcha. Okay, not a problem. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wood. We have a first by Mr. Wood, a second by Mr. Marler. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. We've already moved item 16 up, so next up, item 17, Mr. Casella.
Yeah, just a couple quick issues. Earlier this afternoon, I sent to you the initial scoring for the restore projects that were submitted to the Okaloosa County Restore Advisory Committee. Pleased to show that the Clement Taylor renovations was ranked 7th under the preliminary scoring, and then the Heritage Park was ranked 14th. We are scheduled in the middle of middle of June, I'm sorry, to make a presentation to the full board. That is, the initial scoring was basically, I believe, by the consultant who took their reading of it. So the final will be by the ORAC committee, and then that will be subsequently submitted to the Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners for final review and ranking. Just reminder, there was $6.4 million in this initial funding phase. They're setting aside about 15% or a little less than $1 million for the small projects. We didn't have any small projects, so there was $5.4 million available for the bigger projects. Again, Clement Taylor was ranked 7th, and then Heritage Park was ranked 14th. So we're optimistic that we'll at least get one, if not both of those projects funded in this first round. And if you got any questions after you see that list, give us a call and we can hopefully answer for them. In addition, Canaan and Associates finished their initial sessions with in the 4 study areas a week before last. I think it was very beneficial to them. We probably had 350 to 400 people in total participated in the 4 different sessions. Some of them were repeats. Some of them had interest in numerous areas. I know that Canaan learned a lot. This session was designed to be more on preferences, what people liked and disliked about certain of the planning areas. Right now, unless something changes, they are tentatively scheduled to return to do some of the 3-dimensional modeling efforts the week of July 18th. And they'll be, it will be a similar format, kind of going planning area by planning area, but that is the week of July 18th. So if you can pencil that in from the community standpoint, that's 6 weeks in advance, and then we'll be getting, the public notification out on that. But again, I think overall, the initial sessions were successful, but now the heavy lifting and the modeling, which gets into the height and intensity and density, will come in that middle of July timeframe. So that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Casella. Appreciate that. All right, seeing nothing else, we have comments from the audience. I know Mr. Sandstead is here, and I don't know, Mr. Sharp, if you care to, I know you have we're going to show a couple images, and you had a couple things to say. Would you mind coming forward? Michelle, you coming forward too? No? All right. Cheerleader, all right. Well, good. You push the button, a little smaller gray button that, and say your name, where you're from, please.
Do I have on? I'm
You're
on
on.
now. Okay. My name's Ron Sandstead, and my wife and I own Flutterby Antiques on Main Street. And I'm a member of the American Legion, and as you all remember, I was here a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and asked for permission to have a car show that's sponsored by the American Legion for Building Homes for Heroes. And we had that this last weekend, and it was, I think, a huge success. Dean Sharp was the co-chair that put the event on, and I can tell you he worked very hard. Surprised he's still here. He worked for a month and a half preparing for it, and then it was nonstop the day of the event. But it was a great event. There's pictures of the cars in the street, and we were able to place the cars and still had an emergency lane down the middle, and we didn't entirely fill up the street, but it was sure close to it. And at this point, I'd like for Dean to go ahead and say what he wants to think, but I want to thank all the city council and the staff that helped us put this on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandstead. Mr. Sharp?
Okay, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo Ron's comments and thank the city council and the mayor. And part of this was, Greg's fault, Mr. Kiesler, because he had some recommendations in the beginning, and we tried to build around that, and it came out to be a great success. And in spite of some initial pain and starts, it was just a fabulous day. The good Lord didn't even rain on us, but just a little, even though it was pouring down over on the bridge. I understand from the deputies. But so on behalf of American Legion Post 296 and the Building Homes for Heroes organization, which is one of our main charities, I think with matching funds from a donor that wants to remain unanimous, we'll be able to give Building Homes about $1,500.
Wow.
So I think that's pretty good and pretty big deal. The week before our show, I was over drumming up business in Pensacola with one of the oldest car clubs in the Panhandle, a huge car club and a huge venue, and they had 47 cars. We had over 100 and some cars. So for a first year, I think we put Destin on the map for car shows. We'll try to do lessons learned and make sure we don't make some of the same small mistakes that we made last year. But with folks' help, like your city manager and Kim Montgomery, who did all the paperwork for us and kept me straight no matter how far I tried to stray, your city attorney who kept me legal, Jerry, thank you so much, because I've been known to be on both sides of that lane, just kind of a little illegal and a kind of legal with all my time in the military training. Steve Smith, Steve, stand up over there. Where you at? He's got a good haircut like mine. Yeah. Steve did yeoman's work for us. He even showed up on his day off to make sure we were doing the right things with the cones and the traffic, along with the sheriff's deputies, the posse. And he was even over there with Joe Bodie helping me load those cones up. I did a little construction work when I was a young man with hair, and I forgot those cones weigh 18 pounds apiece. And when they're stacked, they're not really what a 65-year-old guy with 2 back surgeries wants to deal with, but they were great help in every step of the way. Joe Bodie did the traffic plan, and Dave Campbell, it turned out perfect. I can tell you I have feedback in writing from Captain Watkins and the sheriff's posse, and he said the traffic was surprisingly flowed very well. He only had a couple of folks who weren't happy with it, but that happens in every event, but he said it really went well. It even surprised him. So I think laudable comments go out to everybody involved in this. We had a lot of Air Force active duty volunteers who literally helped me set it up and clean it up. And we picked up trash that I don't even think was ours because it was some pretty old looking trash. But if you find any trash over there on Main Street, call me because I didn't see any. And we checked it again on Sunday to make sure it was all picked up and that we left it better than we found it. The Boy Scouts that we support at American Legion did yeoman's work. They sold the water there. They supported the sheriff's posse, kept them well watered, and they're to be lauded also. We allow the Boy Scouts to meet in our post at no charge, and we're a big supporter of the Boy Scouts, and this was supposed to be a community event, and I think it really was. From the fire marshal and all his troops, EMS Dino Villani, Darrell Welburn, Ron Gerdeman, all those guys in the beginning, you know, were very supportive of how we do it. They all signed off on our plan. Destin Water Users, Mr. Lockwood Warnett was invaluable. He has the best spot there because we had shade trees, and those were the best things going that day, I assure you. After that rain, it turned into a sauna. One thing I want to tell you about is the local small business owners in this area. They donated over $2,000 worth of product. Everything from synthetic oil changes from Pep Boys to car washes from the car washes to O'Reilly Auto Parts gave us, you know, a 2-ton jack and air wrench and all these things. I mean, I couldn't go through the whole list. There were 18 different businesses our first year. Those people are going to remember they were in the first class car show and they're going to want to come back. Because I've never been to a car show, and I'm a car show guy, that I've seen that $2,000 worth of stuff given away. And another $500 in the trophies, so we gave away $2,500 worth of stuff to the participants that came there. We had everything from a Rolls Royce to an old school race car with wire wheels. It was really, really pretty amazing. So I hope some of you got to see it. And next year we'll have 200 cars, and we'll have going forth a plan filled of lessons learned from everybody. Without the sheriff's posse, we couldn't have possibly done this. Captain Terry Watkins and his crew are just amazing. I want to thank also Major Gaddis and Captain Pico, I understand he's the area commander here. Those guys were helping us way out in front in the beginning and keeping us up to speed on what we really need to do for security purposes. We didn't have one single incident. If we did, somebody's mama took care of it because we saw nothing. It just turned out great. Everybody enjoyed it. And again, just thanks to all of you for helping us out here. And we hope that did put Destin on the map as a car show place. We're gonna have more smaller events around the Legion to follow up with this, and then we'll do the big one again next year. So thank you very much. You all deserve to take a bow.
I'd like to say something to you guys, Mr. Sharp, Mr. Sandstead. You know, because I don't own the building there on Main Street, but we occupy one of the buildings. Your professionalism was above reproach. I mean, you were faced with a lot of hurdles that you jumped through like a champion. Your patience yet persistence on achieving what needed to be done obviously left a trail of a great impression and expression upon the city. And so I appreciate the way you handled everything. You could have said, hey, you know, I don't like all this and come out, but you came out always above reproach, always gentle, always kind, and very, very great to work with. So I appreciate that very much. And so I'm glad, very pleased. I saw Deputy Watkins Sunday morning at church, and the first thing I asked was, how'd it go? He had nothing but great things to say. So that bodes well.
Well,
So
thanks, Mr. Mayor. I hope this is being recorded so I can show this to my wife, because she's probably not going to buy that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll say it again. All right, thank you all again. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, Mr. Oh, my goodness. What do we, Mr. Shelton, are you sure? Well, come on forward. We'd love to have you. Mr. Mitchell, we get you next.
Thank you, Mayor. I try not to take advantage of this situation too much, you know.
Go ahead. No, I'm glad you're coming.
Council, since your last city council meeting, I just wanted to officially report that because we got a little push there from Mr. Wood back when we were discussing short-term rentals, and you guys said you need to take care of it yourself. You got a homeowners association. Well, our homeowners association came through. The vote is in, and the PCNR revisions were passed. Two of the most controversial provisions that y'all discussed up here was the number of people per house in single-family rental houses. We were a little bit more strict than what Ms. Ramswell offered. We passed 2 per bedroom plus 2 people. I guess one of the other really important things is we specifically disallow commercial weddings. That was the biggies.
When does that take effect?
Weddings.
When does that
and
take
events.
place? When does that take place?
The document was recorded last Friday. I don't know. I'm going to have to leave that to the board to tell you that.
Okay, that's no problem.
Okay. So I just wanted to report that. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Shelton. Appreciate that very much. Thanks for coming forward. Mr. Mitchell? I think you know the routine, but button and state your name, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Steve Menschel, City of Destin. Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm Steve Menschel, a Destin resident, and tonight I want to discuss 3 issues: street signs, accountability, and the upcoming budget. In reference to the street sign issue, as you recall, I appeared before you earlier this year and provided information relative to the lack of street signs on traffic mass norms along Highway 98 in Destin. As a result of that information, staff worked on the issue along with some coordination with the county. Although several announced completion dates have come and gone, based on a story that appeared in the Destin log on Saturday the 30th, it appears we will see signs being installed in the very near future. For that, I want to say thanks to all that worked on that city staff. But the job is only half finished. I want to remind everybody we still have to coordinate with the Mid-Bay Bridge Authority to finalize plans for the Welcome to Destin and Thanks for Visiting Destin signage that the Mid-Bay Bridge Authority stated they would assist with financing of that project. Early this morning, I spoke to Mr. Van Fuller, Executive Director of the Mid-Bay Bridge Authority, and he advised me he had not received any recent calls from the City of Destin regarding this issue, and also stated he was sorry that he did not follow up on this as well. Let me remind each of you, earlier this year, the mayor discussed the issue of how Destin routinely gets accused of administrative charges associated with the Mid-Bay Bridge, and the way to resolve this is via signage. The last thing we need is for our visitors to get the wrong impression and start putting out information that will prevent visitors from choosing Destin as their vacation destination. Please don't let this go unattended for much longer. Coordinate with the Mid-Bay Bridge Authority so that we can once and for all take care of this issue. Accountability. In regards to accountability, I'll start with some brief background information. Several years ago, I worked on a project that resulted in $959,920.59 refunded to the city of Crestview from Gulf Power based on overbilling of streetlights to the city of Crestview. With my prior experience with Gulf Power issues, I asked the city of Destin for a copy of a Gulf Power bill and received a copy of the bill dated February 3rd, 2015, Gulf Power, vendor number 41. A review of that document revealed a total bill for the month of February totaling $33,258.39, with one line item, City of Destin street lighting, totaling $15,510.80. After my review, I asked the city for a more detailed inventory listing of the street lights, which totaled the $15,510.80, and was told that was all the information the city had. I was also advised that the city of Destin had in fact asked Gulf Power in 2011 for a list, but had never received that requested information. Somewhere in the process of me continuing to coordinate with the city for more information, the city staff did in fact meet with Gulf Power, and sadly, Gulf Power told the city they will not have a list available until late August. Gulf Power advised they are doing an eyes-on survey inspection, and upon completion of that, they will provide the requested list. This is akin to allowing a fox to provide you with an inventory of a chicken coop. Simply put, I ask you the following questions. How can Gulf Power do an eye-on inspection of the streetlights without a list of locations of each light? Without an inventory of these lights, how does Gulf Power calculate Destin's monthly bill? And I would suggest if any of you received a bill at home from a vendor and you attempted to verify the bill and the vendor refused to provide you with the requested information, I doubt you would pay that bill. So why has the city of Destin been paying this bill since 2011? Do y'all see a problem with this? In regards to the February 3rd, 2015 Gulf Power bill, I have identified several suspect entries, but without more data, a definitive conclusion cannot be reached. A couple of examples that may, and I want to repeat the word may, be questionable include duplicate amount billed under separate line items on Highway 98 listed as irrigation pumps. These entries do not have addresses associated with the entry, so it is not possible to confirm if this is a duplicate charge or if these are individual pumps with the same cost. Lights located in a private parking lot that are possibly being paid for by the city. As I stated, I have previous experience with overcharges by Gulf Power, and the potential exists that the city of Destin may have issues as well, but without the data, we're only left with questions. I'm trying to help the city of Destin, but I need your help as well. I will close this topic by saying this is not the only area of concern, but I am tackling them one at a time. I know there are other issues with waste management and possibly others, and I'll address each of these in the future. Budget. The final area I want to briefly discuss tonight is the upcoming city budget. As you all know, in Destin, we have two options for law enforcement. We can contract for service with the sheriff's office, or we can have our own department. For the record, I have no problem with contracting for service, but I want to call your attention to some facts and encourage a representative from the city of Destin to take part in a county's budget process to champion a need for additional county dollars for the city of Destin. It is quite possible that during the upcoming Destin budget process, the sheriff will request more funds, more deputies, or both as we enter in the 2016 contract. As you know, the city of Destin accounts for 64% of the county's bed tax receipts, leaving only 36% of the bed tax revenue collected in other areas of this county. The sheriff has stated in presentations before this body that 82% of calls for service in Destin are from tourist/non-residents, which means Destin residents only get 18% of the sheriff's attention. Another way of putting this is, for every dollar you and I spend on law enforcement protection, we only receive 18 cents of that dollar. With that said, if the sheriff identifies the need for more manpower in Destin, Destin residents alone should not bear the burden of that cost. The county needs to be more responsible to Destin and understand the dollars and cents Destin contributes to the county's coffers. Another scenario to consider, let's say the sheriff asked this council for more money for additional deputies and you say no. Now fast forward, and we now see that crime with our tourists skyrockets, and the word gets out, crime is so bad, tourists don't need to stay, they need to stay away from Destin. In that situation, Destin will not only be the one to financially lose, the county will also suffer with lost revenue that Destin generates. And using that example, ladies and gentlemen, is a reason a county needs to step up, but they will not unless you ask. I repeat, they will not unless you ask. A recent example of that, as we all know, is the TDC. As they stated, the reason they haven't provided funds to Destin in its past is because we did not ask. Please don't make that mistake on this issue. Destin has to ask for more money. Something else to consider. It appears that the property rates this year will increase approximately 5%, and the Board of County Commissioners have the option to do a rollback, and by doing so will save everyone in the county. This issue is certainly worthy of debate. In conclusion, all that said, I ask to consider very strongly that Destin take an active part in the county budget workshop and make sure Destin receives more financial support from the county for our law enforcement responsibilities. Hopefully, bringing this information to your attention will serve as a reminder and a catalyst to move forward on these issues. I would also urge those watching this on TV to get involved. Take part in the budget workshops in your local cities and the county. And lastly, I hope our local media will report on these issues to inform those who do not attend these meetings, watch online or TV. Thank you for your time and all the work that each of you do and the staff does to make Destin a great city that it is.
Mr. Mitchell, thank you for your time. Does anybody have a question of Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate you coming forward. Anyone else? Sir, please. I think you know.
George Blakesley. Just a very brief comment. I'd like to commend the mayor, the council, the city manager for being proactive on this spring break issue. It's the way you need to get ahead of these situations to stop them before they happen, getting them corrected, doing the repair to image, the repair to reputation is a hard thing to accomplish. Stopping it before it happens is relatively easy, and thank you. Thank you all for supporting that. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. And if you would, when you get up to the mic, you'd state your name for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Aja Bell. I'm a local young person. I'm 14 years old, and a lot of the conversations that you guys are having tonight you guys are basing in 10 years. And in 10 years, I am going to be 24 years old. That means I'll be graduated from college, starting my career, potentially looking at a family, having a family. And if I don't attend school around here, I will have the option to return to the area that I've grown up in or move to a different area. And I just want you guys to keep in mind that whenever you're making decisions for Destin, for the future, that you're planning for me, for your kids, your grandkids, not for you necessarily right now, because what you're planning right now won't go into action while you're still here and creating Destin. It will be what you created I have to live with, not what you have to live with. So please remember that the decisions that you're making are affecting me, not you. That's
Ms.
it.
Bells, I appreciate your comment on that, and I can tell you several of us have younger children. Ms. Ramswell and I both have some little ones, and Mr. Braden, I don't know about how old yours are, but believe me, it's a high priority for me that our community remain family-oriented, and that decisions we make better not be just for our generation alone. It should be with yours and your children and even your children's children's generation, because it needs to be important to you as an upcoming young adult in our community to take pride in your community, because you'll be swayed at some point in your life to perhaps go away to school, go find a job. My desire is that if you go from here, I hope that what we build and establish here burns so much inside you with passion that you say, I've got to get back to Destin, because you want to raise a family here. And so, yeah, without, beyond a shadow of a doubt, please know that the call that I feel led to achieve in this office is to, not only for you, but future generations after you, to make sure we maintain the DNA of family, that we honor the culture of our heritage, and that we don't lose sight of that when we go forward. So I appreciate you being bold. As a 14-year-old, you're extremely mature and bright, and I'm very honored that you took time to come forward. And it looks like some people have a couple questions. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, first up, Ms. Ramswell.
time is actually back with Mr.
Oh,
Michelle.
forgive me. I'm sorry about that. I
But we
didn't
are
notice it.
thrilled to hear from you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Your reputation precedes you. I heard
Thank
you made
you.
quite an impact.
Yes, I did speak at the Envision meetings, 3 out of the 4 of them. The only one I didn't speak at was the one I did not attend.
Good for you. You're
Thank
very
you.
articulate, and what you say matters, so
Thank
thank you.
you.
And after you get out of college, I expect to see you sitting in one of these seats.
That's
Yes,
right.
sir, thank you.
Ms. Trammell?
Are you on the youth council?
I am not.
You
will
need to be.
You will be in about a month.
Okay,
We'll get you an application.
all right,
It's for high school students.
Okay.
Right here, and it's the City of Destin
I'll be
Youth
starting
Council.
high school, so thank you.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you for coming forward. Appreciate your
Thank you.
comments. Sure. Okay, anyone else? Mr. Pace? No, all right. Seeing none? Actually, did you want to ask Mr. Mitchell a question? Do you mind coming forward?
Well, I mean, it's just I've had time to sort of formulate my thoughts.
Sure.
I'm very interested in finding out about this Gulf Power thing, especially hearing that Crestview was actually refunded almost $1 million, and that's significant. So, yeah, I'd love to get to see the list of lights and have some action taken on that.
Yeah, Gulf Power has committed that by the end of August, they will have a detailed inventory. They want to make sure that they've dotted every I and crossed every T. It doesn't sound complicated, but street lights get installed in lots of different manners, and they want to make sure that they're accounting for them correctly and who's paying for what street light and so forth, and they're doing that inventory as we speak, and they committed to us by the end of the summer, which would be August.
Sure. I mean, one would assume that there is some sort of existing list out there that they have to be working on. I mean, how can they just be blindly billing us?
Yeah, they do have an existing list. They just want to make sure that list, if there's any additions or deletions that they need to make on it.
Okay, great. And then I guess the other thing is I think those are great suggestions about talking with the county and seeing, because especially in light of what Mayor Ponder discussed with the potential for spring break, I know that was one of my concerns as well that I brought up in terms of trying to be proactive. You know, we can be the world's most beautiful beaches, but we also at this point need to make sure we're not only the most beautiful, but the safest. And one of the ways to do that is really ensuring that we've got adequate law enforcement and first responders that are going to be able to be on hand. So anything we can do to try to work with the county to secure more funds, I think is important.
Thank you, Mr. Ramswell. Mr. Dixon?
I can't.
Oh, you did? Okay, Mr. Wood? Okay, Mr. Foreman?
Just one comment. I think every telephone pole is numbered.
I'm sorry?
I think every telephone pole is numbered. It's got a number on it.
Right. I understand. Well, I understand what Mr. Casella said, but what I'm saying is, as a customer, the city of Destin is paying a bill.
Sure.
And it's ludicrous for them, first of all, for them to go make an eyes-on inspection tells you they have a list. They couldn't go to the location if they didn't have a list. So if the city of Destin wants a list, we're the customer, we ought to get it and not wait till August. You know, we're counting on the people that we're getting a bill from to give us an accurate list. What we did in Crestview, we actually went to every pole, okay? Not Gulf Power, we did. And they were overcharged. They were paying for poles that don't exist for years.
Well, but what it sounds like is there's a blanket bucket that's getting all these filtering into one, and they won't unfilter them until August perhaps, and they do an eyes-on evaluation, whereas, like, I mean, it should be, from an accounting, it's that simple as
They
pole
generate
101 is
again,
pole 101. It filters
not taking
into-
anybody's time, but they generate a monthly bill to the
Right,
city of
so
Destin.
we're getting billed for it, which should be
So
yeah.
it shouldn't be that hard to get us a list
Well,
so we can go
sounds-
do it.
Sounds
you
like
know?
we're making the first step we need to, but
Like
it
I say,
may take some more.
that's the fox telling you I'm gonna give you an inventory of the hen house.
Right.
Okay, it's just that simple.
Great,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Mr. Mitchell. Actually, maybe some more questions. Mr. Wood again?
Yeah, I just want to make sure when we get this list in August or wherever, I know there's got to be a list now. Should like to have the old list and the new list together, see if there's any changes, because if we get a new list that agrees with the money, what did the old list say we've been paying bills off of? Let's make sure we get all that data.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Dixon?
Just trying to figure out how hard it would be to do an audit on this. You basically go out at night and you say there's one, there's one, there's one. How long would this take?
There's a lot of poles
Oh, I know there's a lot of poles, but there's not a light on every pole, just so you know. I mean,
No,
there's
I
not a-
understand.
But you can see the lights, you know, at
See
night.
the light? You found, I can see the light.
I mean, I don't really know why this would be so difficult to get an audit on this.
They committed by the end of August. Have you, so.
All right.
Ms. Trammell?
I don't know, Ms. Weidenhammer could probably tell us, but the Public Works and Safety Committee used to go around and check all the lights anyway to see if they were working in their designated area. But just how hard it is, I'll tell you. At the very end of Main Street, I can't tell you how many times I've asked David Campbell to go down there and check the light. The light the city owns is at the end of the airport. The light that I'm talking about, that is blocked by trees, that totally blocks that intersection, belongs to a resident, but it is on city right-of-way. So all these years that I have lived down there, all 35 of them, I thought it was a city light. Turns out to be a private light. And there's really no one, that house has been torn down and it's a vacant lot now and nobody's rebuilt yet. But it's the one that's causing the reaction with people not seeing the stop sign at night and running through these people's front yard. So what you think may be city is not city because it was there before it was a city. So there's a lot of those, but yes, it has a number on it. So it is pretty complicated. It's not as easy because for what, we've only been a city for 30 years, and before that everybody had a private light. It wasn't it was if you wanted it. So there's a lot of them that I think have been assumed to be cities, right, that are not.
Well, hopefully this first audit will point us in the right direction. So, thank you, Mr. Mitchell, appreciate it. Mr. Sandsted?
Yes, on Main Street, there are 38 light poles that were put in when the street was remodeled. A month ago, I counted, there were 14 out. There were 14, I mean, and I don't know how we're being billed. I mean, this is real interesting what he was saying about the bill. I'm real curious how we're being billed. Are we being billed by the light pole or by the ones actually that are on? Because over a third are not on, and it's dark on Main Street. And one of the problems that we have, Crestview Produce is backing their semi trucks up to that median so they can pull in to unload, and they can't see. It's too dark. They run over the median. I mean, they just planted an antenna. I planted a tree there a year ago. It got demolished within 3 months. And I have a feeling that the antenna that just got planted there on the end of that median is going to get wiped out because you can't see. Those truck drivers can't see it. So Main Street, well, you know, your point about counting the lights, well, you're assuming that the lights are even on. There may be a light there that we're being charged for that isn't on. Well, you're going to have to count the light poles during the day and then go back and look, see if they're still there on at night.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to do it both times.
It's going to take a little time, sure.
Yeah, so, but 14 of them were out, and I don't know how many. They just continue to get more and more out. I don't think anybody's checking them.
No, that is not correct. We have reported those lights. Steve, you want to?
Yeah, the Public Services Department a couple months ago reported there were 12 lights out, and they reported them to Gulf Power. At Mr. Casella's request, I went out a couple weeks ago and did a survey of the lights. There were actually, at that time, 16 out, and I went to each one with a little flashlight and got the pole number and actually took Gulf Power to task, and they assured me that they would all be fixed very shortly, and I'm hoping that they are now. We'll verify that this week.
That was 2 weeks ago. Are they on now, Mr. Sandstead?
So I don't know. I mean, I checked it. I looked at them a month ago or so.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly.
Are they on now, Steve?
But you're saying they're on now?
We haven't checked, but we'll let you know. We'll check this week.
I mean, that really proves the point that if each poll has an itemized list and he can call and give poll numbers, then there has to be a list, otherwise they wouldn't know where poll number XYZ was located.
Right. Every pole has a light, but as Mrs. Trammell said, some of those lights are Gulf Power lights that we pay for, some of them are private lights that the customer pays for. So it's not that easy. I mean, there, you know the light's there,
sure,
but
one
you
more
don't know
time.
if it's on or not, so. But
That's fine.
by
Yeah.
the end of August, we'll have this.
Just gotta make it brief so we can, that's right, let's go ahead.
Just very quick, not to
Make
beat
it
a
quick,
dead
yeah.
horse,
That's all right.
okay? It's irrelevant whether it's private or not. In my subdivision, all the lights are private. The bottom line is Destin, in that bill, was charged X number of dollars for a certain number of lights. And Destin ought to be allowed the opportunity. Give Destin those lights.
Yep.
Volunteers or the city staff could go check each one of those lights. Doesn't matter if it's private or not. We're not inventorying private lights.
Right, right.
Just we want the number of lights that equate to that $15,000 bill.
Right, well, yeah, I think, and that's what I think we're trying to head to get
Right.
all that siphoned out.
Absolutely.
So, good. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, appreciate it very much. Any other comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.